So a call for evidence there, particularly in areas around sort of regulation and labelling, etc. And certainly experience in the past shows that relying on the industries to regulate themselves doesn't seem to work too well. It does seem to need some sort of mandatory big stick. But anyway, Bobby, would you like to kick us off on that one?
Okay, you've made a lot of points, Teresa. I think the first thing that I would say is that even the debate probably isn't even articulated by nagging versus shoving, because in fact it depends on the issue. There's something in the media today about breastfeeding and its relationship to obesity in adulthood, citing one single study. In fact, one wouldn't want to be doing too much shoving on breastfeeding, so it's a different argument. Not every behavioural issue that we want to influence has a massively over-resourced industry again it. I think that we should learn from experience, and the kind of evidence that I think you might not have been hinting at, and that is that the industries that result in huge amounts of ill health have got a vested interest in continuing to recruit their new users. And one would cite the alcohol industry in our face right now, and there hasn't been a glimmer of evidence that what the alcohol industry can do could result from a voluntary responsibility deal. So it depends how much damage we are prepared to tolerate as a society. So my position would be perhaps articulated, well, what's the most efficient and cost-effective approach? So let me cite an example that was quoted by David Cameron on alcohol. The past chief medical officer and many others have shown that there's evidence that minimum pricing for alcohol would make a difference to overall consumption and recruitment of young people to binge drinking. So what happens? We're in the big society, and the big society really sits in the little local neighbourhood. And so Manchester says, could we go for minimum pricing? And David Cameron says, yeah, fine, we'd love that, go for it. We then learn in the next day's reports that actually it's anti-competitive to do that, and you can't do it. So there's some things that have to be done in the very big society, and they're more efficient and more effective in terms of their outcomes. So
okay.
That's my response.
Okay. Anybody else want to contribute to this particular one?
Just to say that I think that, I mean, share anxieties about food labelling. I think it's, it's very easy for that to misguide people. And the issue actually continues to be an educational one, not just about what people eat, but there's ever-increasing pressure to eat more and more. I'm astonished sometimes when I go into a restaurant, not that I do very often, but I'm just astonished at the amount of food that's put in front of me. And we've got to the stage now where quite often my wife and I just order one, so we have half each. But there are huge interests, vested interests, which are driving the fact that, we should just eat lots and lots and lots. And it's difficult actually to see how you can regulate that.
Okay, Krieger?
I wouldn't be a great fan of regulation, but also I wouldn't be a fantastic fan of relying on industry to do things for the benefit of wider population health and well-being. There's no evidence whatsoever that they will do that, because the bottom line is profit. And as long as we have the big mammon of economic growth as the thing that we need to aspire to, rather than a sense of well-being, meaning and purpose, we will continue to dance around in partnership with industry, expecting scraps off the top of their table. The bottom line is, though, those kind of activisms won't happen until people stop consuming the goods they're producing or demand better ways in which those goods could be produced for proper benefit. We might not do that if we continue to be seduced by a consumer culture.
Yep. And Steve?
We talk about education, and I think a lot of good work does go on in our schools. You can see that regulation works sometimes, certainly with smoking, because any staff room now you can see across it where you couldn't when I was at school. But there are healthy schools programs. Children are educated in schools to look after themselves. and to try and keep fit. But we are fighting an enormous industry and media or advertising campaigns, as others have said, to get us to consume more.
Okay, and Phil?
I think the issue about evidence, and is there enough evidence around, on many of the health issues we're looking at and the public health issues we're looking at, there is lots and lots of evidence. And sometimes it seems almost too much evidence. But people who are in the position to perhaps do something about it are the ones often who want to ignore it. The Chartered Society of Physiotherapy has just done a recent survey looking at the pattern of work, and a piece that got in many of the national newspapers is the fact that 36% of people don't take a break at all during a working day. That something like a quarter of people take no lunch break on a regular basis. Now, physiotherapists will tell you very clearly that being hunched over whatever your piece of machinery is, whether it's a computer or it's an industrial piece of machinery all day, is bad for your health and bad for your body without taking a break or taking exercises. Do employers encourage people to break from that? No, they do not. People told us that, in fact, they were afraid, many of them, something like 40% of them, said they had some kind of back or other pain while they were working. Did they take time off? No. And in times of economic troubles, they are even more reluctant to do so. Yet, when you actually work out the economic costs of what is going on, the cost to employers, if they would only shake the blindfold from their own eyes, is huge in terms of lost productivity, in terms of sick leave absence that they don't need to have. The cost to the public health system is enormous in terms of increasing ill health, and the costs in terms of the benefit system is enormous as well. So for all of those reasons, I believe that we've got to keep on repeating the evidence and repeating the messages and finding better ways of getting people to understand that the economic costs, the health costs, and the personal and family costs of ignoring this is enormous and damaging.
Mm. And of course, it's fair to say, isn't it, that NICE are doing a pretty good job now through their public health programme of gathering the evidence around a lot of these big issues and collating that in a way and weighting the evidence so you can see actually the quality of the evidence that's being, that's being put forward. Admittedly, some of it is fairly ropey stuff, but nevertheless, the evidence is laid out before you to make your judgments. And NICE has I think, done a very good job in collating that. Just a couple of points on evidence. I mean, on the pricing of alcohol, I mean, the Sheffield studies, okay, that's modelling, it's not, but nevertheless, the Sheffield work does put the cost of the whole thing very clearly there in terms of lives saved, but also that really does make the whole minimum pricing thing really work well. The other what's going on? Yes. Yeah, but
yes.
Is that a black one?
And it's my new role as a handbag snatcher.
I was nudging you to steal it. I knew there was something inside.
No, it's not that one. It's not that one.
No.
Is that yours? That's mine.
No. Alan, don't do your back in.
No sign of it. The successful handbag snatcher.